Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Wednesday, and all of our guests today brought to you by Able Auctions, our title sponsor, ableauctions.ca. We're joined now by TSN Scouting Director Craig Button. Craig, thanks for doing this as always. How are you, sir?
I am really, really good. Hope the same for both of you.
Thank you.
Craig, last week we had on Josh Bloom, Canuck prospect, who scored the Memorial Cup winning goal for Saginaw. I was supposed to ask you about what you think of his future. I forgot. I apologize for that. I'll ask you now. Josh Bloom, what's in his pro hockey future?
You look at players, and I'm just going to give a little bit of background. I'm sure the Vancouver Canucks, he was acquired in a trade from the Buffalo Sabres.
Yes.
And we see players, and Josh went back as an overage player this year, ended up in Saginaw. And the vast majority of players need more time, not less. And when you start to look at the progression of a young player, in this case, Josh Bloom, everybody would like a player to develop when he's 17 and be ready for the NHL at 19. That's not reality in the vast majority of cases. So there's a couple things that I would say about Josh. Josh is somebody that brings some offensive capability. He's not going to be a first-line player in the NHL, but we look now when we talk about having skill and having depth in your forward group, and Josh can provide that. He's going to need time in the American Hockey League to just acclimate to pro hockey. He had a little bit of a taste of it this year, but going back to junior, I think really helped him and helped him become a player that could gain his confidence by being productive. Now he knows what pro hockey, he's got a taste of pro hockey. He can come back in next year knowing that he's not going to lose any of this productivity. He's not trying to find productivity coming into pro hockey for a second go at it. And smart, can play on the wall, competes in and around the net, good skater, good hands, but that player that can provide that offense deeper down your lineup. And I think, he's not an A-level prospect, but he's a B-level prospect. And how do I define a B-level prospect? Somebody that needs some time in the minors, but certainly has the skills and the attributes to eventually be an NHL player.
Craig, of course, Stanley Cup Finals continues. How are the Panthers doing it? Up 2-0 on the Oilers. The Oilers with just one goal, none from forwards in the first two games. How are they doing it?
Well, they're suffocating the Edmonton Oilers, and this should come as no surprise. They were one of the very best defensive teams in the entire NHL during the regular season. They have not fallen off in the playoffs. They've been the best defensive team in the playoffs. They did it against Tampa Bay. They did it against Boston. They did it against the New York Rangers. When you look at how they bottled up the top players, for the most part in those series, but in the most recent one, Zibanejad and Panarin really had their struggles. Kreider had his struggles because they really understand how to prevent you from doing what you want in the most critical areas. Where are those areas? The areas in the slot, inside the dots, in and around the net. They're just so good, and they're so capable of not just defending, but they use their forecheck and their neutral zone to not even allow you time to set up in the offensive zone. That's what they've done to the Edmonton Oilers. And the first two periods for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 1 were really good, and they had some chances. Bobrovsky stood in their way. The last four periods have not been kind to the Edmonton Oilers. They were number one in the NHL in inner slot shots per game heading into the playoffs. They were even really good during the playoffs. In their last three games, they are really poor. And that comes to defense, and that also comes to the lack of initiative, getting pucks in and around the defense, or in and around the net, trying to disrupt the goaltender, trying to get the players uncomfortable into the net area. Defenders don't want to have to go to the net and look for pucks. The Edmonton Oilers haven't done anywhere near an admirable job of being able to use what I call in-zone drive and purpose in and around the net. And that's a big problem. And if they don't find a way through this, if they don't find an adjustment and do that better, this series isn't going to go very long.
Hey, Craig, so many free agents in Vancouver. They got a ton of them. No one's been re-signed yet. I wanted to ask you about, it looks like they're not going to do Lindholm because it's going to be too expensive. Guentzel's name has popped up in the market. He would be perfect for Pettersson on the wing. What are your thoughts about Guentzel, possibly a long-term deal there?
Well, who knows Guentzel better than Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvin, and Rick
That's
Tocchet?
it.
That's
it.
Sergei Gonchar. Nobody does. So, you start to look at what the cost would be for a player, and so I'll go two layers on this, Rick. Number one, Guentzel's an elite offensive player, but you just committed 8 years at big money to Elias Pettersson, and good players, top players like Pettersson, they need complementary players. Jake Guentzel is as complimentary player for superstars as there is available. And so, if I'm given a choice to have Guentzel and whatever the money is and Lindholm, it's not even a choice. I'm running right to Guentzel every day of the week because Guentzel with Pettersson is significant. And that's where, to me, Guentzel has a massive edge in terms of them, and they happen to know the players. So I thought it would have been a great fit. We heard a lot of talk at the trade deadline that maybe they would move Lindholm because they were looking at Guentzel. Well, now you don't have to move anybody out. You just say, we're signing that guy. I think Guentzel would be a terrific signing for the Vancouver Canucks.
All right, Craig, I want to ask you this. The NHL Combine, we hear all the time these teams talk to these kids and ask questions like, if you were an animal, what animal would you be and why? Craig, give us some insight. What did this team get out of asking a player that question?
Well, I have no idea. I mean, first of all, the interviews are like 15 to 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like those what did they call them, 30-minute lunch dates, and you're trying to find a date and
speed dates.
Speed dates. You're not finding out anything. Okay, great. You ask a player, what's your favorite animal? Okay, it's an elephant. Whatever you want to be. Really, my good friend Jimmy Johnston, who started for the Dallas Stars, he goes, you know what, Craig? I go and watch the games. I watch the players. You're going to have a group of players that you're going to be looking at in the draft. And then you're going to try to dig in on the background on those players. You're going to try to spend time with them over a longer period of time. The combine interviews, okay, y'all want to meet a player. You want to shake his hand. You want to ask him what he's good, what everything is about. That's great. I really believe that unless the San Jose Sharks asked to meet with Macklin Celebrini, if I was Macklin Celebrini's agent, any team not named the San Jose Sharks, no, you're not getting an interview with them because you're not getting them. And other players, I'm not giving teams as an agent an opportunity to go meet with players just because they want to. If they're in your wheelhouse and they're in your area and I evaluate that, you can meet with them. Listen, I hear the questions. The vast majority of them are questionable. A lot of them are straight up stupid.
Hey, Craig, you mentioned Macklin Celebrini. We had his dad, Rick Celebrini, on. He's from around here. He now works with the Golden State Warriors. What does Macklin, if anything, have to work on in the summer as he enters pro hockey?
Let me see. Well, the things he's going to have to work on, he's not going to be able to work on them until he starts playing against NHL competition. He's an elite talent. He's superbly well-rounded, and he has shown at every level. And you go back just the last 2 seasons. In the USHL as a 16-year-old player, he dominated the league. He was the best player by far. He goes into the NCAA as a 17-year-old player, youngest player playing. And he's the best player in college hockey. So for me to sit here and say he has anything to work on, I don't see any flaws in his game. I don't see any area of his game that you have to go back. Well, maybe just improve this area. Players, I don't care what's the first thing that every player, a forward or center, face-offs. So, he's going to have to improve on his face-offs, but he's not going to know that until he gets into the NHL and he gets eaten up on face-offs. And understanding, just you can tell a player how quick the NHL is, how strong the players are, and he's going to train and he's going to be fit. But once they start to feel it, they go, okay, I got it, and that's how you learn. The reason he's been able to dominate at those ages against competition much older than him is because he acclimates and adapts so quickly. The skill area, the thinking areas, the competitive areas, there's nothing he needs to learn. He just needs to go into the NHL and adapt to a faster, bigger, stronger league. And I don't think that Macklin's going to have any problem. And for the San Jose Sharks, to me, he is going to be a player that is going to be a foundation for their success for years to come.
Looks like we'll have a Stanley Cup champion to talk about next time you're on the show, Craig. Thanks so much for this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great Wednesday.
You bet.